right, welcome back. The following segment is sponsored by Carr & Carr. Mesothelioma is a rare form of cancer which attacks the chest, the lungs, the heart, abdomen. It often strikes those exposed to asbestos, so you can be compensated if you or a loved one contracts mesothelioma. Carr & Carr, attorneys at law, they've got the answer. Very happy to welcome this morning via Skype attorney Patrick Carr. Pat, good morning, sir. How are you today?
Well, good morning. I'm fine. Thank you very much for having me on today. Appreciate it.
Well, no, glad to have you. First, though, Pat, I think the first question we ought to talk about is what is mesothelioma and why and how is asbestos so bad for folks?
Well, mesothelioma is a disease of the lining of some of the internal organs in your body. For instance, the lungs, it could be the heart, could be the stomach, could be other areas. But the primary target for mesothelioma is the lungs, and it's caused almost exclusively by exposure to fibers from asbestos. Asbestos was used in various types of industries during the 1930s all the way up to the 70s, and these little fibers are very, very durable. They're very heat resistant, so as a result of that, they were used in places like insulation in your home, used in the oil field, used in Navy yards. And so when these little fibers become airborne and you inhale them, they stay in your lungs forever. And it takes a long time for them to lead to cancer, sometimes decades, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So you could have had a family member or yourself exposed to this many decades ago and just now starting to feel some of the effects of it. And mesothelioma is very difficult to treat because of the latency period, because by the time it sets up to the point that you can feel it, it's very difficult to treat.
Okay, so if someone goes in and they're diagnosed, now, Pat, with mesothelioma, what are their legal options at that point? Because as you said, they may have had this in their system for 20 up to 70, 80 years ago.
Yes, and that's the thing. Many times the companies which actually use the mesothelioma, and sometimes knowing that it had these terrible adverse effects on people, are bankrupt. They could have been overwhelmed with claims. They could have, for instance, fallen by the wayside for other reasons. But thank goodness there have been some 60 trusts set up across the country, which now have assets of about $30 billion. And family members of people who were exposed to asbestos and suffered from mesothelioma and lung cancers can make a claim on these trust funds. And so it's important to know that they're there, they're available, and the process isn't as long as involved or as involved as a regular court hearing would be. Sometimes funds from these trust funds can be available within just a couple of months. So it's important to pursue the claim if you think that a member of your family or yourself was exposed to to asbestos and developed cancer because of it.
And I understand there are also some special benefits that are available to our veterans?
Yes. Under the Veterans Administration, exposure to asbestos and developing other kinds of diseases as a result of that, mesothelioma, one of them, can lead to special benefits within the Veterans Administration system. So it's important to make a claim to the VA if you think you've got some kind of a disease. And it's not only the lungs, it can involve the stomach, it can involve the heart, and it might even involve other areas. For instance, in men, the testicles could become involved. So it's important to seek out lawyers who have some kind of experience in making claims against these trust funds, and also finding doctors. Many times, a doctor will not see a mesothelioma case for his or her entire career, and so it's important to seek out second, maybe even third opinions to make sure that you know you've got the proper diagnosis. But one other thing to know about that is that there is a time limit to make a claim. Here in Oklahoma, it's generally 2 years from the time of death in the event of a mesothelioma death, or the time that you knew you were exposed and actually developed the disease. And sometimes these trust funds have their own special sets of rules, which can vary between 1 and 6 years. So making a claim, at least initially, requires somebody who's got the knowledge to know where to make the claim, when to make the claim, and whether or not you qualify. And even a member of a family who wasn't actually working around the asbestos might have been exposed, because when typically back then it would be the father in the house would come back and may very well have brought asbestos fibers on his clothing. And when the family washes it and exposed to it, they can over time develop enough asbestos fibers in their lungs to develop a disease like mesothelioma or lung cancer.
Pretty amazing, and obviously there's so much more that you could talk to us about and share, but really if folks have questions, they can call you. We're going to give that number right now, but again, Pat, thank you, sir, very much for taking the time to talk to us today. Carr & Carr, attorneys at law, 918-747-1000, the number to call. If you have more questions, you can also go online too to find out more as well at carcar.com.